And so then what made you want to take the jump to be a judge?
Oh, that was kind of like, that was a moment out of a movie. I was walking down the hall one day, and a guy by the name of his first name was Peter. You'd be amazed at the Jewish people in my history that have come to my aid and to my family's aid, and just out of nowhere. It just shows you what kind of a community we have here in Denver and in Colorado. But Peter stopped me in the hall and he said, you know, I know some people in the administration, and he says, I've watched you, we tried a case together. I think that you'd make a heck of a judge. And I said, yeah, when I'm older, you know. I would think I was about 40. I said, well, when I'm older, maybe. And he said, no, now's the time. He says, they're appointing judges in their 40s, but also in their 30s. And it may be too late for you if you don't do it now. So with his encouragement, and another man by the name of Marty Zarobnik, another Jewish gentleman and lawyer, had watched me conduct a hearing. And he said, he came in one day and he said, I understand your father's Irving Andrews. He said, Irving and I went to law school together. He couldn't say enough about my dad. And he said, I've heard some good things about you, young man, and I watched you the other day conduct a hearing. He says, have you ever thought about joining the judiciary? I know some people. So, I mean, how could I say no? So I put in my application. I didn't even have an interview. Another man who practiced before me, I was a hearing officer for the Department of Excise and Licenses for the city of Denver, part-time. And that's where I met Marty Zarobnik and later a guy by the name of Alan Dill.
Okay.
And he came in and he said, I understand that you applied for the county court judgeship and you didn't get an interview. He said, let me see your application. So I gave it to him. He says, well, let's spruce it up a little bit. And he says, you know, and I know some folks. So next time if something comes up, you know, just give me a call.
Right.
So I wasn't planning on being a judge, but once I became a judge, I had a lot of folks who were a lot older and wiser than me that I listened to, and they said things like, this is not about you. You stand on the shoulders of giants. And these were people who were from the Jewish community and the African American community who came to me and said, this is what we expect of you. You need to be a representative of the community, in the community. That means that you treat everyone even-handedly and justly. And that's what I've striven to do all of these years. You know, growing up in Denver, Colorado, I knew what was going on in a sense. When I was 5 years old, I went down to the corner market, and these people couldn't have been more than 5 feet high. A man and a woman. They were very white, and they both had, their hair was white. I mean, they were just small, old people, and just as sweet as they could be. Found out they were Jewish later, and I found out this way. I came home from the store one day and I told my grandmother, I said, and I can't remember their last name, but I said, Mr. and Mrs., whatever their last name was. I think it was Meyer, I'm not sure. But they had these numbers on their arms. And I asked my grandmother, you know, it almost brings tears to my eyes when I think about when I think about that. I mean, at the time, obviously, I didn't know what it was.
Just too young.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 5 years old. And then she told me. And I thought, I didn't really understand. I didn't understand until later. But I felt sorry. But they were the sweetest people. And so that was my first exposure. So I knew as I grew up how Jews were treated in this community, how African Americans were treated in this community, in the larger world community, because I didn't see a lot of discrimination in Denver. I'm sure it was going on because there were certain places where you couldn't buy a home. Right. I remember when my father wanted to buy some property, Marilyn and Hal said, you know, you have to get a loan and you have to do all this, and we will be the middleman for you. I mean, I'm serious. Yeah. So people would go out of their way to make sure that justice was done in the lives of people who were deserving, because they realized society at large, you know, was mistreating some of its citizens.
Right. So and it sounds like there's a lot of alluding to the legal profession being very kind of close and small in Denver, and that kind of trumped the diversity issues at the time to a certain extent. And so it seems like through history it's been pretty diverse. So what changes would you like to see kind of continuing down the road and for the future?
Well, I think that the legal profession is forced to change because of technology. I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, you can't be a closed society anymore. I mean, if you are, there won't be a legal profession as we know it today. And I think people in the profession are smart enough to know they're going to have to change. I recently attended a meeting with some judges from different strata, and I'm talking about the whole judicial hierarchy, where judges realize that, you know, we can't, I mean, we are generalists for the most part, but we probably need judges who are grounded in some specific areas, especially highly technical areas where they don't necessarily have the expertise or the experience, that you need people who are the trier of facts, so to speak, because a judge often is that these people need to be skilled. They need to be masters in that subject, and that judges just can't continue to be generalists. So that means that we're going to have to probably restructure the legal profession so that when people go before a tribunal, they know that the people in that tribunal are knowledgeable about that particular subject matter, regardless of what it is. Patent, trademark, intellectual property, it doesn't matter. But you've got someone who's an expert. And right now, most judges were generalists. There are some specialty courts, tax courts, bankruptcy courts, etc. But I think we're going to have to see more of that kind of thing.
So just how the attorneys have sectioned off into their specialty, the judges might have to do the same thing.
I think so. I think so.
So in connection with the diversity issue or questions, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see maybe a young attorney make with diversity and its presence in the courtroom?
Oh, you know, and it's innocent because there's a saying, and I don't know where it comes from, but my people perish for lack of knowledge, and that applies to all of us. If you're lacking in knowledge about what you're dealing with, you might make a mistake. I was taught that you can never go wrong if you use the words pardon me, thank you, and please. If you do that, you know, you won't make mistakes. You know, kindness, courtesy, love, and justice can cause anyone to come into accord with anyone else. But those are essential. If you don't have that going on, it's difficult to communicate. You know, all life is about communicating. That's all. That's what it's about. And then in the legal profession, it's communication and persuasion. So if you don't know how to communicate, you're going to have some difficulty persuading. But if you know how to communicate and persuade, then you're going to be successful. And that means you have to know your audience. You have to know who you are dealing with. And you have to know what the ramifications are in, say, your interaction with people who you may not know. If I had to deal with someone from China, I mean, I would do a little bit of research and find out maybe there are different types folks in China. I mean, Szechuan, Mandarin. I mean, who am I dealing with?
Right.
And that there are different dialects, even within a language. I mean, I would like to be able to present myself in a way that, even though I don't know you personally, that I am trying to find out who you are. I'm going to take the time to find out who you are so that we can communicate.
Right.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Right.
So I think whether we want to do it or not, whether we think that we're the be-all, end-all or not, that we're going to have to interface with a lot of other people that we never thought we would. So it doesn't matter what we think about diversity. It's coming.
Right.
It's going to be forced upon us, all of us, from both sides.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no survival, in my opinion.
So I want to really put you on the spot for a second.
Please.
If you could go back and just decide to do something other than be an attorney or than a judge, would you do something else? And if so, what would it be?
The answer is no. You know, when it got tough for me in trial practice, I thought, boy, maybe I should have stayed in business. I was lucky when I was going to law school. I had two cherry jobs, and I worked. As technology was evolving, I was right there on the edge. I worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies, IBM, International Business Machines, and then later one of my fellow students convinced me to go over to his company, Honeywell Information Systems. So I was right on the edge.
Yeah, two pretty predominant
they
technology companies.
They were. This profession has opened up doors for me that I don't think otherwise would have opened. And it's allowed me to do things that I never thought I would do, primarily to be in a position to lift up other folks and to have other folks be successful in the profession. And again, this is not about me, but there was an article in one of our local legal rags about my mentoring over the years. And the people who were interviewed were judges on the Court of Appeals, judges on the district court, professors, people who were, one is a senior legal counsel at Microsoft. All of these folks whose lives I've touched and whose lives have touched me, where I've been in a position where I can encourage them. I'm not responsible for their success by any stretch of the imagination, but we were in each other's lives at a time that it was probably important for us both, and where someone might have wanted to quit or do something else. I was there to maybe encourage them and maybe pick up the phone and make a phone call. I remember calling Mark Caldwell here in NEDA because there was a lawyer who appeared in my courtroom who needed help. Otherwise, I told him I couldn't allow her to practice in my courtroom because she didn't know what she was doing, and she's going to hurt someone. Mark said, I'll tutor her, and took 2 weeks of his personal time every evening to tutor this woman who is now trying death penalty cases. And that was maybe 12 years ago. So, you know, there are a lot of people like that out there where we cross paths with one another. And we're all about making this journey better for the participants. And that means every living human soul that we come in contact with. Not just in the legal profession, but everywhere. And this profession has given me the opportunity to be in the forefront of that. And it's made my life so rich. I mean, I can't tell you how rich my life is because I'm constantly doing for others. And what happens to what I have, it's incredible. I mean, I keep getting higher and higher. And I'm not talking about a job or a title or anything, but my life just gets richer because of that. So the secret is, for me, has been the more you do for others, the richer your own life becomes. And so I don't know that I would have achieved that in any other profession the way I've done it in this profession.
So what one piece of advice, or maybe one is too few, what advice would you give to a young person today, whether they're part of a minority group or not, if they came to you and said, you know, Judge Harrell, I want to become an attorney, or I want to become a judge?
And it's interesting that you should ask that question and put that little caveat in about whether or not they were a minority. You know, my whole role in this area of mentoring probably started out where I wanted to try to encourage African American men especially to be, if they were going to be lawyers, to be the best that they could be. And then pretty soon they were asking if their friends could come, and then pretty soon it was just a mixture. It was a diverse group of people. And so all the people that I've helped or have been, you know, there on the sidelines to encourage them, have been from every walk of life and are everyone. I mean, there's no group that I've championed over any other.
Stone left unturned.
No, I just, you know, you ask me and I'll give you everything I have. It doesn't matter who asks. I'll help you in any way I can. But I would ask you to do one thing, and that is, if you really want to be a lawyer, do some research. Find out what kind of a lawyer you want to be. Spend some time with people who are doing the kind of thing that you think you want to do. But just don't do it because you think that you're going to make money or that it's going to open certain doors for you or that you're going to be able to do something you've always dreamed of doing. You may find out spending a day or two with a lawyer that this is not what you want to do. And I guarantee you there are a lot of folks who have left the profession, good people, who have left the profession because once they were in it, after a few years, they realized, it's not quite what I thought it was. And they're honest, because I've asked, why would you do it? I mean, why would you spend all that money, all that time, and then change your mind? And to the man and the woman, they will say, I didn't do any research. I mean, I do that as a lawyer now, but I didn't really research it. I didn't do my due diligence, so to speak. So you owe it to yourself to take time out. When I thought about becoming a judge, an appellate judge, for example, I spent time with a friend of mine, Sandy Rothenberg, and said, I want to see what you do. And I took time off, vacation time, 3 days I was going to spend with her and to find out if I wanted to be an appellate judge. And at the end of the first day, in the middle of the day, she says, Al, you want to go to lunch? And I said, okay. And she says, so this is what we're going to do this afternoon. And I said, Sandy, I've had enough. This is not my cup of tea. I don't think I need to come back later on today. She says, well, it's a little different. And I said, it can't be, because what I've done.
It can't be different enough.
Yeah, you know, I said, I like being in a trial court where I see one person after another, after another, after another. And to sit here and look at those briefs and read that dry transcript about what happened in a courtroom when I could actually live it, I don't think that's for me. So I would say, you know, investigate what it is you think you want to do, because it may not be quite the way you think it is.
Judge Harrell, thank you so much for your time today. Very much appreciated for stopping by.
And thank you, Travis. It's been a pleasure.
Fabulous.